Digital media has changed our way of seeing through the manipulation of images. As the old adage goes, seeing is believing. However, in a world where technology has evolved to manipulate images of reality, this saying may not be as true as it once was. Image editing technology, specifically Photoshop, has altered our perception of the world by creating an airbrushed and unattainable reality. It has encouraged public distrust of all images and created a culture in which reality is subjective and easily manipulated. Image manipulation is no modern idea. Ever since the invention of photography, there have been changes made to the image produced in order to edit the story that the image tells. Throughout history, there have been many notable images that have been tampered with. As early as the 19th century, just a few decades after the invention of the camera, photos were modified or created to appear in the best interest of those in the pictures. Around 1930, Joseph Stalin made sure that in many of his pictures, his ex-colleagues were airbrushed out of the shot, as can be seen in this example. By doing this, it is as if Stalin was never even seen with the man. Adolf Hitler was also no stranger to this technique. Today, it is called the patch tool and is used to remove anything or anyone from the image without leaving a hole or negative space in the area in which the being used to occupy. In the edited photo on the right, Hitler had Joseph Goebbels removed after a falling out between the two. Erasing members out of the shot was only the beginning of image editing. This image was created after the 1997 terrorist attack at the Temple of Hatshepsut in Luxor, Egypt. What was a puddle of water in the original photo became a stream of blood flowing from the base of the temple. This image was published in the Swiss tabloid Blick. This image shows George W. Bush at a rally, speaking in front of a crowd of soldiers, and the image on the left was used as an ad in his political campaign, in which Bush was removed to highlight the young boy in the forefront holding the American flag and the sea of soldiers in front of him. Bush's figure was removed and the negative space filled by copying and pasting soldiers already in the scene in the lower left-hand corner. This trick was not unearthed until someone discovered multiple sets of one soldier in the image. Here, the boy seemingly faces his future as he surveys the masses of soldiers and waves his flag proudly in the air to create feelings of loyalty and patriotism. But why would images be manipulated like this? What good comes of it? From birth, a child relies on sight to learn about their surroundings, even more so than speech, as speech doesn't come until much later in the developmental process. So, if a child sees an image, they automatically believe the image at face value. This has been internalized in all of us growing up, and so image manipulation really changes how we perceive history. If we were not there to experience what is in a picture, the only way we can logically understand history is to trust in whatever sources are given to us, be it pictures, texts, or artifacts. So, if an image has been altered, most people will not give it a second thought because we are constantly processing such images and labeling them as fact. In order to create our own sense of history, we will now construct a political image of our own. In this example, we take an image of President Barack Obama and combine it with an image of Sarah Palin. In this merging of two iconic figures, we create a familiarity between the two, and even if they are not making any sort of contact with each other, or specifically dancing on the TV show Dancing with the Stars, simply by being in the same frame, we have grouped these two characters in an irreversible bond in which the human mind cannot entirely forget. As more examples of edited historical pictures are discovered, there is a growing trend in public distrust of all images. In a society in which images are so widely used, this may prove to be a growing problem, because if you can't believe what you see, what can you believe? We now fast forward to the present day in which Photoshop is a required tool for every picture published. Even though the use of photo editing is by no means one of modern origin, the advancements of technology have unleashed an entire world of Photoshop that is readily accessible and in high demand. From the Facebook application Picnic to automatic settings on cameras, Photoshop in its most primitive state has been placed into the amateur photographer's hands and is used with gusto. While it is usually pretty easy to distinguish photos edited by these two examples, it is not nearly so with some of the more advanced programs. In this example, we use Photoshop CS5 Extended. The first image you see was taken with a Nikon D3X camera in a residence hall study room. With Photoshop, we can turn the still image into something more suitable for billboards or, say, magazine covers. The techniques used are as follows. Liquifying enlarges the mouth and redefines the facial structure. The second technique is used as the patch tool mentioned earlier. Usually for removing blemishes, this tool can remove anything from the frame without disturbing the color, depth, or balance of the original shot. The third technique, the spot healing brush, smooths away any imperfections. And the final tool we use in recreating this image is through the manipulation of colorization. Colorization balances the hue in the image, making the colors more pleasing to the human eye. As you can see in the final image, while edited with only a few techniques, it depicts an entirely different person.
We sat down with Win Wiley, photographer and editor of this image, and asked him his opinion on how digital image editing technology has changed how we view images.
I would say that a large portion of my time is spent in Photoshop and post-processing to get the images where I would like them. Not only is it a huge part of my business, but it's really important in today's society, and by a lot of people's standards, it's almost required.
Why do you think it's such a prevalent part of our society today?
Well, because I think our image of beauty is so manipulated in Photoshop that we just can't get away from it.
And is this something that's just been recurring over time?
I think it's been building up over the past few years with the availability to Photoshop in people's hands all over the world in a way. And so it's almost just like, why wouldn't you use it?
The idea of perfecting one's self-image is employed heavily today in advertising and marketing. In order to sell a product, advertising companies target our perceptions of ourselves and use airbrushed models in their campaigns to tug at one of our innermost desires, perfection. Perhaps it was this obsession with perfection that has propelled Photoshop to the forefront of image editing technology. With the realization that perfection is unattainable comes the need to bend reality until it is attainable, and Photoshop has greatly contributed to making that happen. With the use of Photoshop manipulating one of the most popular forms of communication, images, we now live in a world in which it has become more and more difficult to find truth in what we see. Pictures now reflect the agendas of those in control, be it Joseph Stalin or a modeling agency. We can no longer take an image at face value because seeing is no longer believing.